a nice picture right there.
Cameraman Greg.
You got to be good at something.
Come on.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast.
Just got to remember to hit record.
Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag. You hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
Howdy, and welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast. Coming at you from the Okayest Hunter podcast studio. I always say coming at you from. We're coming at you.
Just coming straight for you.
Doesn't that just sound kind of weird?
It's just aggressive.
We don't got to be coming at you all the time.
Yeah,
You can
it's
come
a
to
little
us.
aggressive.
It's okay. I noticed that I think we got 3 new ratings on iTunes in the last week. So whatever we said on the last podcast, people must have really liked.
Really
And-
piss them off?
No.
Yeah. I think they were
star
5.
reviews.
I think they were 5s.
That's
I
good.
think they were just feeling guilty for us. And we're like, you know what? I'll give these guys a 5-star review.
A pity 5-star.
Yeah, I'll take your pity 5 stars all day long.
If
It's
you
still
have a
5
pity-
stars.
If you've got a pity 5-star hiding in your back pocket there, go ahead and get over on iTunes and throw that pity 5-star our way.
Why not?
It's like that $2 holler game. You guys ever play that?
No.
You heard of this?
No,
No.
explain it.
Oh, okay. So
Enlighten, please.
$2 holler is when you take a piece of dog poop, smear it on a dollar, slap it to the ground, and wait for someone to walk by and pick it up. When they say, "Oh, look, $1 or 20 or whatever it is," and as soon as they pick it up, you yell out $2 holler, and they got shit on their hands. So I'll
That
take your
just
pity
sounds
stars for
messed up.
$2 ratings.
Wow.
Got time to kill.
Yeah.
So we were a victim of one of these $2 hollers
You
at a
were really?
campsite, and our buddy was like, "Oh, look, $5, picks it up," and all of a sudden, all these people yell $2 holler. So then, like, everyone got trashed, and suddenly there were like people going around asking for dog poop from dog owners, and
Not
they were
right.
like, "I'm not kidding. There must have been $200 worth of littered money with dog poop on it around this campground for the next like several days," and we kept falling for our own $2.
You guys are a bunch of shit handlers.
Yeah, we like to talk dirty here on the Okayest Hunter podcast. Brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Earmuffs.
Yeah, say your must. No, we'll keep it clean if we can. It is marked explicit, but thank you. If you have any feedback, let us know. Happy to see what you have to say about us. Spartan Forge is our presenting sponsor. They are pushing the envelope on what is possible with a deer hunting application. They just released their new like predictive like forecast of where a deer may or may not travel. And they're forecasting that deer movement based on deer movement
And that's
data.
on their mapping.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
I saw a glimpse of that, and it just was like, is this real?
I've never seen anything like that in my like has never existed ever. Can we just stop for a second and think of like where we're at from a technology standpoint? Is it 2072 or is it 2023? Like, what are we doing here?
Bill's got a time machine somewhere.
You ever
I
see
know
those memes where it's like this guy's living in 20, whatever, pick some future year.
It's a deer hunt time machine.
So
Hot
yeah,
tub time machine.
SpartanForge.ai will take you to their website. Code OHP will get you 20% off your annual membership. Redeem that puppy. 20% is 20%.
Use it.
Take it when you can get it. It'll save you some money. And us Okayest Hunters, we got to save all the money we can.
A poop smeared buck is a poop smeared buck.
If you got to pick up a $2 holler to get you that,
To get you that membership.
yeah, you do what you got to do.
Oh man, I was just talking with someone today that bought. Today they bought a Latitude saddle,
Eebity,
They got
eebity,
the,
eebity.
the single piece, the one that you have.
Yep.
The
Sweet setup.
what am I doing? In my brain, not the Method 2. It's what is
What is
the?
the classic one?
It's just a classic.
classic.
Yeah,
right?
there we go.
Yeah.
Attitude classic.
I was trying to say classic, but I was like, no, it's something else. No, it's classic.
Get your ASIC in the classic.
Ooh,
Nice.
they put the ass in classic. Does that work?
Don't put your ass in classic.
Dang it, I swore. But they put your classic. Okay. Yeah. So great stuff. They were evaluating a couple other competitive brands and were like, you know what, this just speaks to me too much with all of there's no metal, the meshing, so you're not going to get swamp butt there. It's not holding all that heat, which is nice.
The only time it'd be nice is winter. That's it.
You're right.
Maybe
Yeah.
they'll make a winter
You
model.
maybe don't want
never
that breeze on your butt in the winter, huh?
know. Just wear enough layers underneath and you'll be fine.
Can't fart in that one, it'll waft away.
Sure you can.
That is one thing though. Like late season, when you wear the saddle, like any saddle, doesn't matter what, because
It's hard to figure it
compressing
out.
your layers.
Yeah.
Your butt does get cold. I don't wear it a lot late season, but like
it's compressing all your
it's taking
insulation.
your insulation away. You know, get a little butt pad on there.
Interesting.
Get you up.
I hunted out of mine for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours for the gun opener, and that was pretty darn cold. And I did well. I was okay. I was using the tree to block the wind.
Smart.
Because you can rotate around the tree in your saddle.
Rotation,
freedom of movement, yeah, all that stuff. Vector Custom Shop, can't say enough good things about those guys. I think Derek's still on the hunt and Greg's still on the hunt. Both of you guys are still looking to, like, you filled your Illinois tag, but not your Wisconsin tag for buck, and you're still looking to fill your buck tag, even though you've slaughtered a bunch of does.
Yeah. You'll have that.
Yeah. And did you get yours flying good now or what?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
A lot of tweaking with my bow in the basement and a lot of shooting, and then going between 4 different kinds of broadheads and figuring out what flew the best. So
if you're a listener to the podcast and you want to see more Greg content of him trying on 4 different broadheads to get his arrows to fly right, send him a direct message and say you want Greg in his basement making videos.
Your basement is like the archery laboratory.
It is.
My basement is a freaking disaster area.
It's an archery
gear all over the place.
Archery laboratory.
There's archery crap everywhere. There's plumbing stuff. There's tools, and that's where things go to die.
Yeah, well, Vector Custom Shop for your arrows. Use code OHP for I think it's 10% off. We'll have to talk to Isaac and see what that is if we want to adjust that for this. Now we're in a new year. There may be some opportunity to see if we can, I don't know, or not.
Crank it up some.
Yeah. Go Wild. They just announced a partnership with, good job, with Mountain Tough. You guys know what Mountain Tough is?
No.
So do you want to hear how I know I have a guest waiting, and we're going to bring him in just a minute, but when I went to Montana for work, I was waiting to board to come back home at the Montana airport, which is pretty small. There's like a escalator. Like there's not much going on. There's a fire pit. It's very nice. Have you been to this airport?
No. I drive.
It's very quaint.
Montana
it's
when I go
very
through
quaint.
Montana because there's too much to see from an airplane in Montana.
Okay. Well, as I'm waiting to board my plane, someone gets off the plane and it's Braden Ware with Go Wild. Really? And he's walking. He's like, Eric? I was like, Braden? What are you doing in Montana? He's like, what are you doing in Montana?
Did you guys run at each other, do a slow
motion? We hugged. We did. We fully were like, oh my God, it's this crazy thing. Yeah. So he was there for Mountain Tough. He flew for like a day to do a Mountain Tough workout with those guys. And so Go Wild has done a partnership with them. I'm just reading the notes here real quick. It's the dates of the workout challenge are January 9th through February 5th. So we're kind of in it now. If you join Go Wild and Mountain Tough communities for free 30-day workout program, it's designed to get you in shape, for turkey season. It's called the Go Wild Challenge. No equipment is needed. So hopefully, like, if you don't go too hard, you won't bust your shit like Greg over here. Just try.
I'm the poster child for what not to do.
Is that the beast mode?
It was.
You were doing with the beast mode?
Greg's just really hardcore.
And those guys do a great job, and they're doing a lot. I wish I had time and distance wasn't an issue. I'd go work with them still, but yeah, it is what it is.
But you gave her hell. Like, you didn't die, but you freaking did something close.
I don't think I gave it as hard as maybe I could have, but I don't know.
You had a hernia. I don't know how much harder you could have given it.
Pretty hard.
I mean, did you hear this, guys? He didn't do hard enough. He had a hernia.
Well,
still some gas in the tank.
I got 2 legs yet.
Leave it on the field, Tubbs.
Yeah. But each time you work out, you just tag Go Wild and Mountain Tough. It's MTN Tough to hold yourself accountable. And then they're doing a UTV giveaway, which is pretty rowdy. If you've seen this thing, it's like all decked out in like a Go Wild wrap, but it's pretty hardcore.
Dude, UTVs are like more than a used vehicle. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that giveaway dates enter January 16th through March 31st. So if you're a Go Wild member already, you can enter for a chance to win. And I'll talk more about it too. We have a couple more episodes to do. Feel bad because we're rambling on. But if you want to find us on Go Wild, all of us are there individually. We're there as the OKS Hunter, also as a collective. And you can use code OHP to save yourself some money on checking on Go Wild stuff, because you can buy gear from their website also. I think I've covered all of it, guys.
Yeah. Is it time to show the donkey the snake now?
Oh my God. What's up, Austin? Thanks for
what's
going on, guys.
Hey, buddy.
Like all that. That was a mouthful, huh?
I know it was. I had to come back to the screen here.
Welcome to the show. So we got Austin here with the Tactical Approach Outdoors. We're happy to have you. We met on social somewhere. I don't even know which platform because I'm spending too much time on all of them and I don't know what's going on or what is up or down anymore. But why don't you take a second to introduce yourself and talk about what you got going on?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Been looking forward to talking to you for quite a while. So I'm Austin Stone. I'm the owner of Tactical Approach Outdoors, and I've been deer hunting. I think probably this last year, I think was season 21, I want to say for me. And, I was fortunate enough. My dad got me started early and hunting public land my whole life. That's all I've had available to me. I've enjoyed it. The ups and downs of it sure are frustrating, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So I live here in Kansas City. I actually, my day job actually is I'm a personal trainer. So you guys were talking about Mountain Tough and the fitness challenge and whatnot. I do that on a daily basis.
Yeah, so you could join and just crush everybody probably. ain't no thing, guys. Mountain Tough. Let's go. That's great.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. So, gosh, I'm trying to think like where I want to take this with you here because you do quite a few different things. We just learned that you're a personal trainer also. Probably give us some coaching. Probably should be drinking all this bourbon over here for starters. Damn brown water. But no, I think it'd be fun to talk about the educational piece that you've built and what that is, how it works, and kind of what you're doing with it as it relates to adult onset hunting. We've had some of our writers have written about adult onset hunting. I think I technically am an adult onset hunter. I didn't really start hunting till like my mid 20s with bow. I think I went with gun as like I don't know, old teenager, real close to adulthood. So certainly a topic that I think is near and dear to what we do.
I think we've all had at least a couple people who we've helped
get
into the sport of archery hunting.
Between our friends over at the Hunting Common, BHA here, in our state, I was involved with. I was supposed to be on a bow hunt, but that didn't work out. But I did a small game mentored hunt for an adult hunter that was my age, and then just recently a gun hunt for deer over at the Durham farm with he had to be in his 30s, late 20s, early 30s. So didn't hunt a whole lot and just was curious to learn some things. So it was a great conversation.
Yeah, so how are adults coming into hunting if they haven't been exposed to it? Like, what's the lead in? Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of it's nice seeing a little bit of a shift. We were a lot of folks that kind of gotten out of hunting or didn't grow up hunting, like I was fortunate enough to. And I've started seeing a lot of folks right around our age, the 25, 30, 35, trying to get into hunting or do it more often. They hunted at a younger age, but not very seriously. And they're wanting to get into doing it more. They listen to podcasts just like you guys. You guys are doing a fantastic job. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are really bringing a lot of knowledge to folks. And I think that's big for what's helped the industry a lot. Not only the podcast, but also YouTube channels and making it look, showing the real world hunters out there doing it. I grew up watching the, heavily managed areas, just like all of us have. Grew up watching the VHS tapes and DVDs of super heavily managed properties and shooting monster bucks, and it's fun seeing more and more hunters getting out there that are just like us, normal everyday dudes, carrying a camera in the woods with them and wanting to tell their story and show their adventures. And I think that has helped a lot with bringing a lot more people into the industry.
I'd agree. I mean, you nail on the head.
Just the number of people we've run into. I think when Eric and I were out in the woods, we ran into one or two guys, and myself this year, I bet you I ran into 5 guys who were just getting back into it or just getting into it for the first time that were like my age or a little bit older that you would think like you bump into them at a trailhead. You're like, oh, here's another hunter pounding the area and like, oh, first time out here, just giving it a go. A lot more of that in the last few years than I saw in the past. So that is definitely exactly what Austin's talking about. Seems to be what I'm noticing here.
So then you're kind of seeing a lot of that as a marketer. I'm thinking of like funnels. That's the top of the funnel. It's piquing their interest. What's the next step for some of these folks? Like, are they reaching out to friends and family? Like, because it's a pretty strong barrier to cross. And I have an anecdote of a friend that I'll bring on the podcast later this year when he's back home in Wisconsin. But like, I think his first step was an archery shop, rented a bow and arrow, and just started shooting. And that was it. Just kind of grew from there. And I think he got his first deer last year or this past season. But happy to hear what you're seeing and what you're doing with that, because you have a course to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of times what I've seen. Also, they go talk to archery shop. I worked at Bass Pro for a little while as an archery tech, and I did field a lot of questions, along those lines of folks trying to get into archery for the first time, and adults getting into it themselves and then bringing their kid with them. So they're kind of learning at the same time with their son or daughter and getting better with their archery and whatnot. And then we go to, with the technology, like you guys we have available, your podcast and YouTube channels, like I mentioned before, that's kind of their next step. And then you start creating contacts through social media. So Instagram has been fantastic. I love how I've been able to connect with people on Instagram. Guys get to send me a message with just questions. You know what I mean? And anything I can do to help them see more success. And then I run that YouTube channel, and I try to be as real and authentic as possible with giving you as much information to help you. Maybe that one thing you're missing, you know what I mean? This video would answer that question. And I've gotten messages about that, say, hey, I would just watch this video and I just went out and shot my first deer, or just shot the biggest deer of my life. It's a lot of fun fielding those comments and messages and whatnot. And then you kind of, as they've gone there, they start wanting more information. So I tend to, where I'm getting a lot of folks that aren't just brand new to the industry. They're kind of that next step. They've learned how to shoot, and they've had a couple years of hunting underneath their belt, and they're ready to see more success. They're not quite seeing the deer movement that they want to see. They're ready to shoot that first deer, or their biggest deer. They're ready to see that little bit nicer deer, a little nicer buck, and so on. And those are a lot of the folks that are coming my direction. That's exactly why I built the course. It wasn't just for the brand new hunter, but it was also for that intermediate and that novice hunter that is ready for the next step. You know what I mean? See a little bit more success, and make the information as understandable for the ultra beginner, but super detailed for that more intermediate deer hunter.
I would say I'm probably an intermediate.
Well,
I'm not an expert. I'm just trying to think of like, where do I fall in this classification?
We're all in that pool. What I noticed on your channel, I was snooping through all of your videos, and your channel really caters to exactly what you just said. I think a novice hunter, right? Like somebody who's just learning it, you don't know what you need yet because you're just figuring it all out. So going on YouTube and finding a specific video about how to set trail cameras or how to spring scout, like you don't know you need that yet because you don't have the experience. But what I noticed on your channel is you have like a whole bunch of shorter, hyper specific topics that you cover, which is perfect for that person who's like realizing, hey, I should be getting out and doing this, but I don't know how to do that. Like that's searchable. That's something we didn't have, 15 years ago, 20 years ago growing up. We had, maybe a dad or a grandpa showing us, but now people can go out ready for the next step and literally look for what they're looking for and grab it like off a video like your channel or any other. And they have that specific information catered to them, which is awesome. I was checking out your videos. They're great.
Yeah. And you nailed it right there. It's, you kind of don't know what you don't know. And that's what I want to cover. Is I want to cover everything. So it's, you can kick, you don't know what you want, what you need to search until you've actually heard of it. You know what I mean? So all of the information is already out there available to us, but it's not organized in a manner that if you don't know that you should be looking for this specific information until you find it, that you find that one video. And that's what I want to do, you know, create those posts and videos that, hey, I didn't even think about touching this topic. And then you not only dive into my video, but then you can branch out to a whole bunch of people that are super knowledgeable as well, and really figure out what works best for you. You know, this is exactly what I've done, is learn from so many different people and then figure out what has worked, what works best for me, and figure out my own kind of system, basically.
So do you think there, like, as far as how your course like gets unpacked, what are some of the prerequisites? Like, you should probably know this before you do that. You should probably know how to do that before you can do this. And you should probably consider these things before you consider that thing. I'm sure you can obviously jump way ahead, and you know, it's like certain books, you don't have to read cover to cover. You could probably pick your chapters and go from there. Maybe that's like the Bible. Like, you pick some verses, but eventually you might want to dive into the whole story of our Lord and Savior. But as far as it goes to like bow hunting, which is basically a religion, which is why I'm making this comparison. You know, what are the prerequisites?
It's coming around now.
Some quick mason work.
Put enough water in that mud.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the about the only prerequisite really is you know, just learn to shoot and take your hunter safety course. You know, get yourself some camo, get yourself some equipment, and you don't have to go out and spend a boatload of money to do that. You know, you can get yourself some really nice equipment that's going to last you a long time. Or if you're just getting started, you know, that first initial price tag can be high because you're buying, you know, your bow, or you're buying your gun, and, you know, all these different pieces of clothing in your backpack and boots and whatnot. You know, the list goes on. A tree stand or a saddle. You know, there's a whole lot going around. You know, a lot more people getting into saddle hunting and whatnot. So there really isn't much for a prerequisite. And if you come in as a novice and intermediate hunter, you can jump ahead. You know, I've set my course up in a manner where you don't have to go through every single chapter and simultaneously. Obviously each chapter builds on the next, right? Each one builds on the next, and then you finish at the end with my blueprint to success, where I kind of wrap everything up into 5 videos. And this is my whole process from e-scouting all the way through the hunt. And so you can skip around, especially if you're been hunting for a little while and you are looking for more specific topics. But it's built in a way that the brand new hunter who just got done with their hunter safety course can get on this course, watch it from start to finish, and hopefully go out that next season and have some success.
So without giving away like the, you know, the secret ingredients or how the sausage is made completely, because I'm assuming, you know, you probably want people to buy this program and go through it. But, you know, what are some examples of things that I'm going to learn from an e-scouting perspective or a boots on the ground? You know, what tools are you pushing people towards, or how to navigate them? Because depending on, you know, the state that you're in, there's a lot of nuances to this kind of stuff, like how to draw tags, or can you hunt this land, or like Wisconsin has voluntary public access and managed forest law and crop damage tags and like conservancy there's all sorts of different like pockets of information that can exist. If I venture in another state like Illinois has got, how many rules and regulations you guys run into in Illinois?
A lot.
And you didn't realize it until you got there in some of the cases, even though you did your best
I'm on
effort.
the naughty list there because I didn't turn in a card at one wildlife management area. So
what do you mean? I didn't hear about that.
Your windshield card.
Yeah, your windshield card.
What the hell is that?
We noticed you didn't put on a windshield card when you were over here, so shame on you, and we'll be watching you. All right, see you in
Never.
10 years.
Jeez, how do you really feel about it?
Right there, Illinois.
Give us another reason to hate you. Done. Jeez. Sorry, Illinois.
And I didn't pay my toll. Damn it.
Oh, there's always that.
I did that.
Some freaking. Oh, I have to deal with tolls tomorrow, don't I? I'm driving to ATA.
Yes, you do. Enjoy
Damn it,
that.
I always forget about the tolls. Sorry, my brain's
Anyway.
wandering.
Anyway,
But no, examples. That's what I was asking for.
I use Onyx Hunt all the time. That's what I've used for a long time. There's quite a few other, like you said, you have Spartan Forge here. That's a fantastic app. I just started kind of playing around with it this year also, and they have a good mapping tool. Biggest thing that I strongly suggest is just going out and just doing your research on that specific state or property that you're looking to go to. Because like you said, not only each state has different regulations, but each property can have different regulations as well. And that's something I touch on, and that's how I like to find my out-of-state properties is I look for those properties that have special regulations that might tip me off to there being a more mature buck herd on that property, or a property that might have fewer hunters. It's not that's not a foolproof plan, but I can kind of make an educated guess based on those regulations. And then when I put boots on the ground, I can look for, the access routes, where the parking lots are, if the maps matched up to the what I'm seeing on property actually. So that's I just I start with the maps. I see exactly where my property is, what the property looks like, what the regulations are, and then I'll go drive around, put boots on the ground, and see if it matches up, crops and everything.
That's cool. Onyx, I think, is widely used. A lot of folks use it historically. I know one of the drawbacks for folks to switch over was they couldn't import pins. I know you can do that now with Spartan Forge as just a call out. But I remember talking with my boss in hunting season, and I was showing him Spartan Forge, and they have this feature where you can look at, if it's available in that particular area, you can look at the time line of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I could look at yesterday or April or whatever, vegetation versus not vegetation. I can look at 2021 versus 22 versus 23 and so forth. And it was interesting to scrub through the timeline in this area that my boss was hunting, because there was a subdivision being developed that on one app, the other one looks like it has always looked. And on Spartan Forge, it looks like they have a bunch of bulldozers on site breaking down trees. And it's like, so it gets you a little bit closer to reality in the cases where it's functional in that area, and helps you, you're not going to have such a big surprise with boots on the ground. I've seen actually the hunting public had a aha moment with the mapping application where they went out and they're like, well, there actually isn't a bridge here. They had to figure out a different entry point, which I think ended up being an advantage for them, but it didn't look that way in the map. So that's hard. That's a hard thing when you're considering out of state, or you've never done this before and you haven't really played around on your public lands in your area, or if you don't have private land. It's always interesting to get in the mindset of someone that's never hunted before, and just, how long this road is to go down and how endless it becomes and how deep it can get. I just feel like, man, where would you even start?
I think, we were just talking about the e-scouting thing, like the little nuances of looking at your area. Like, you do a lot of e-scouting. Austin does a ton. You've spent time looking at maps. Sorry. But you get so used to seeing what your terrain cover in your area looks like from an aerial view, where Austin, who does a bunch of out of state stuff, what it looks like in Kansas versus Missouri versus maybe
whatever else
pasture land of Iowa versus Oklahoma, it looks wildly different. And for somebody new looking at say a different state, even, it totally throws you off when you're, what the heck am I looking at here? Looking at maps for years and years, what tag alders look like, what hemlock looks like. Right. I know what cedar, people don't know that.
Still, at the end of the day, I'm not going to rely on that mapping app. This is just me, but I would rather still go in there and put my boots to the ground and put some miles on and burn some boot leather and see what's going on in there. Because, pictures show you the terrain change, maybe, depending on what you're hunting. But it's not showing you that, on the map, like you said, there was a tree here. Now it's down on the ground, and there used to be a trail that went right past it or underneath it, maybe. Now it's going way around. It's looping around. So boots on the ground scouting is way better than just staring at your phone.
100%. And it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. You're our guest. Please interrupt me.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, I was just gonna build on that because I'm gonna there's a lot of things that you don't see on those maps, and a lot of times the best hunting location can't see the terrain change or the vegetation change on the map, where the only way you're going to see that subtle edge, that subtle terrain feature, something that's going to create a pinch in movement of some kind. You don't, and I've ran into that a lot, and I run into areas that have recently been flooded. You know, when I go out of state and start scouting, I recently flooded, and I'm super pumped to get out there and put boots on the ground. Next thing I know, it's trashed from the flood, and I pretty limited and may have to go change properties, and I've also ran into a property in Kentucky where what looks like producing crop fields weren't planted. And if you're going into, especially an early season hunt, that's make or break. The deer aren't there if those crops aren't there early season. So it's like, you get close, but like you said, you can't beat boots on the ground and just putting miles on a property.
I do love that, like when reality aligns with expectation, just because you build up so much in your head about like I'll study maps for far too long, and then I get out there and I'm like, oh, this is way different, or this is what I thought it was. Like that, who's that football coach? They are who we thought they were. Like, like when that happens, I'm like, holy crap! Like the property I shot that buck on, I analyzed that far too long from the phone, and you're good, buddy. Just mute him. He's gonna run out of here. Hopefully he's okay. Greg's got to take a call. But that moment when you get out there and it starts to like take shape, and you're like, but it could also go the total opposite way, like you're talking about, and be like, oh my God, what? This isn't anything like what it looked like on the app or on Google Earth or whatever it is you're using. But it's interesting just how excited you can get just by looking at maps. I think before cell phones existed, I remember with my dad, we would be looking at maps on paper on the kitchen counter for hours before we leave to go up north. We're looking at them on the way up north. We're looking at them at the hotel we stayed at. We're looking at them in the truck when we get there, just like obsessing over it, looking at the topography and all that stuff. So as new hunters, like there's certain pockets of deer hunting that you can get really sucked into that make it just as fun as if you're actually hunting.
Agree.
I don't know how to explain that, but I guess I would be curious to hear what kind of anecdotes you have or success stories, or like, raving fans that have gone through you have they come back to you and said like, oh my God, this has been amazing, or thank you so much, or I learned that, or I learned this, or have you had a lot of that happen yet?
Yeah. I've had folks, especially on the tree stand placement series I think I did that a year and a half ago. I did a series, I covered different terrain features and river bottoms, different pinch points and whatnot, and really talked a lot about kind of what to think about when setting up in this particular terrain feature. So like a saddle, or, in farm country, we talk a lot about fingers and ditch crossings and connecting woodlots and whatnot. So I did a series on that, and I had multiple people reach out to me about that. They found a lot of value in really kind of learning about what those terrain features look like. And as we know, as a bow hunter, 20 yards can make or break a hunt. So if you would have chose this tree typically, and then you had this slight tip you off, and maybe in the video, and you chose this tree instead, and then you ended up shooting that deer that you would have only seen and never got a shot on otherwise. So that's kind of been a lot of what I've heard from YouTube and whatnot.
Every little piece you can pick up without having to learn the hard way is a good win.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. If you can learn from other mistakes, maybe that's why OKS Hunter is such a valuable brand. It's because
Learn from our
we'll
mistakes.
just give you all the mistakes. You're never going to learn anything from anybody else more than you will from us.
Don't do this.
If we make all the mistakes, you're going to learn the most. Forget the successful people; they have nothing to teach you. No, I'm just kidding. That's my other background here. I think I like this version. This is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know what I'm doing. I keep clicking stuff. Sorry for the changing up. Tony Cordero says, shh. And I think he was saying that when we were talking about, when you're talking about where mature bucks might be and less hunters might be, he's telling you to, maybe not.
Yeah, we can't give away those secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff Vance just jumped in here and said that, I'll put on the screen, said the stand series helped me focus my attention on terrain in Wisconsin. That's pretty cool to see. Thanks, Jeff, for that comment.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jeff.
That's awesome. Yeah, stand placements. That's like there's all these pockets of intel that you can learn. That one being one that I get a little obsessive about. There's going to be a clip on YouTube when our new show airs where I must have spent maybe an hour looking at trees, and so I'm assuming it's going to get played with some circus music of me just standing around or like the Jeopardy music, but it matters as much as it matters, based on what you can get away with. I think Derek's approach is really unique in that, like, he's not going to hunt a tree because it's going to conceal him really well. He's going to hunt because that's where the deer is. And then you got to really kind of make whatever you have work to the best of your ability. I would like to find the best of both worlds in a perfect scenario. And some of those finer details are going to really make a difference if the deer are there. And I would use the buck that I got this season as the most primary example of that I put in the best possible tree I could based on what was happening. And when I looked at where I shot the deer from that deer's perspective, that deer did not see me.
You were in like a perfect.
I couldn't have picked a better spot. And I was so proud of myself, honestly. Like it didn't even, like my dad has always said, don't silhouette yourself. Don't silhouette yourself. Get a backdrop from the deer's perspective. Like that has been enamored into my brain and soldered in there. So like that is one thing that I'll always do. But when I was a young hunter, I didn't think about the placement of the stand until I put it up, and I was like, oh, I put it facing the wrong spot with I'm right hand dominant. So like I'll get the base of the tree and I'll do this. I'll pretend I'm drawing back and looking, and I'll try to figure out. Now with the saddle, it's the inverse because you're facing the tree. So saddle hunting, it's almost like backing up a trailer. You're turning the wheel the opposite direction. It's like a mind F, But these are good things to learn if you're a new hunter. If you haven't been exposed, like me, I learned a lot of this stuff the hard way, even though my dad probably told me 1,000 times, make sure you think about the position of the tree. If it's leaning this way, if it's doing that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. And then I would make the mistakes and go, oh yeah, well, now I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I've learned a lot too, is not just choosing, the best concealed tree, like you just said, but hunting where the deer are. I ran into a lot of situations, the mature bucks on public ground, they're in the thickest stuff you can find. And, you might not always have that super nice oak tree to set up in. And I've sometimes just got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? I'd rather sit in this tiny little spindly little tree and act like a statue and possibly get a shot on what I'm after than, sit 50 yards away and hope that they wander by my tree and that's more comfortable. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, Austin, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to relate to this pretty well because you've already alluded to it in the beginning when you introduced kind of what you did. But what you just mentioned there, it took, I don't know, me a long time to realize. And I hunt with my parents a lot. And I think my dad and I both took a while for us to realize when you watch those old VHSs, and maybe it's good for the newer adult onset and young people to watch the YouTube series that are real. Because man, I watch Drury, I watch the Mossy Oak. I mean, I watch all of them. Prime time. And these guys are in the beautiful hardwoods, big trails running, and these bucks are just running down these trails through the wide open hardwoods. And I set up in 100 trees, just like that, and never saw a mature buck. Ever. That's not where they move during daylight on pressured land.
That's funny because you think about like, if I were a deer, where would I be? And I think subconsciously, some of those films are still like in the back of our head
Burned
going,
in
well,
there.
this is what it looks like. It does. I've seen deer here before. I know I have. It's because all those damn videos that lied to us.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh man, I want to be on that big, just beaten down trail, but you're not hunting all the deer. If you're after a mature buck, which like Austin targets on his, like, you have to hunt where that deer walks, not where 50 deer walk.
Yeah.
They're different animals.
Was it the MSU Deer Lab just put out a post or a study that like it was like around 40 deer might use a single scrape, but it might be like 12 bucks will use that scrape
Oh yeah, and the number of mature
or something
bucks.
like that. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's interesting. That,
I actually saw that.
Yeah,
I saw those posts. I like that. I like those posts because I'm a huge scrape hunter, so that I find that was really cool actually to see the statistics of it.
Do you have like a glossary of terms for new hunters? Because like I don't think I picked up what a scrape was till like 6 years ago or something. I just thought rub and scrape were interchangeable. And I was like, some people call it a rub. That's weird.
Scrub.
Yeah, I was like, what? But the licking branch, scrape, rub, those are all different things, you know? And some of the terminology I think probably matters to a new hunter if they're trying to understand what the hell these deer are doing to communicate with each other.
That's actually a good idea. That'd be something a really good idea to put together because it matters. I mean, a rub and a scrape are two different things, and you know, they both matter in their own respective.
That's just it. They have their place and time and place too, and they tell you different things about what's going on in the season and when they're using them, and a lot of it's at night and so forth. But yeah, we take for granted that we know this stuff, and you'd almost feel foolish trying to like bring it down to some new beginner level. And some people might think you're patronizing them. Like, I already know that, idiot. It's like, well, this isn't for you then. Move along.
Yeah.
You know, this is for someone that doesn't know what that is. But I think there's a lot of, I don't want to look stupid in this space. So people aren't willing to ask the questions. Like, I never asked. I just, at some point, my brain started to finally connect to that. So I'm like, people keep saying these two different words. I don't think they mean the same thing. And eventually I just kind of like ran with it and did some research myself. And I was like, it's almost like when you say a word wrong, like here's an example. When people say, I want to flush it out, it's not flush, it's flesh, which sounds weird, but it's actually, let's flesh this out. But when you hear someone say flush it out, you're like, no, that's not the right word. But you wonder, how long have I been saying the wrong damn word? Like with other things. How long have I been thinking this way about deer hunting? Why couldn't someone have taught me this? Because everyone's too afraid to ask.
Well, yeah, then you go somewhere else and they use a totally different word. Out east, they call a rub a hooking.
What?
Yeah, he hooked a tree.
Shut up.
Yeah.
What are you, fishing?
North. Yeah,
he hooked a tree.
Hook a tree.
Shut up. Learned something new today. This is the thing. The more you learn, the more you realize, the less you know. Like that's the definition of humility, if you ask me. Like, that's why it's important to stay humble, because you never know what you don't know. And if you act like you know it, you're not open to learning new ideas, like hooking a tree.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I've never heard that term before.
That's crazy. Okay, so there's some comments coming through. I'm going to open up the phone line. I'm going to hope and pray that it works. So I'm going to put that on the screen if you guys want to call in. The number is on the screen. If you're listening on TikTok and you want to call in because you can't see the screen, it's 262-757-4122. But the question we got from Tony Cordero said, saddle question. Do any of you feel more connected to the hunt in a saddle versus a tree stand?
I don't necessarily feel more connected to the hunt, but I definitely feel more comfortable in a tree. I always feel connected into the tree, you know, at all times, but I definitely feel like I can stay a lot more concealed and are a little bit more free to move. And I know that my Kansas buck this year, hunting from a saddle, is probably the reason that I ended up harvesting that deer. I don't know that I might have been able to still harvest that deer from a stand, but I think I would have been picked off if I was in a stand versus the saddle.
I think that is a good point about saddle hunting. I do prefer sitting in my tree stand more than the saddle, even though I like the saddle. But I think you can shoot deer from a saddle that you couldn't shoot from a tree stand, and it doesn't work the other way. If you could shoot it from a stand, you could shoot it from a saddle for sure.
Oh, that's a good way to talk about it.
I don't think it goes both ways. It's
Yeah.
like saddle.
Yeah, like a square
definitely-
can be a square and rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square.
Exactly. Same
Yeah.
paradox there.
So my thought on it, because of course I want to weigh into the question, is I always like to feel like a ninja. Ever since I was a kid and I watched the movie Three Ninjas, I was obsessed with ninjas. And so, like, to this day, I sneak around my house and I'll scare the shit out of my wife like 4 times a day. And because I'll just show up.
Oh,
I'm not
that's
saying
why-
boo, I'm just there. So in the woods, that's why I like bow hunting, because you can be nimble
That's why
and
you
ninja.
were wearing that black cloth belt when I took you out opening season
Yeah.
opening. I was like, that's weird. Oh, you're being a ninja.
So with saddle hunting, I feel like it's an extension of being a ninja. I'm using the tree as concealment. I also think you just get a little bit more like options and opportunities to stretch your legs and sit and stand and if you shouldn't be moving all the time for the record, but if the tree is concealing, you can get away with a little bit more of that. So there's a little bit more grace. And with my rifle, I'll note one added bonus is you can use your bridge as a rest for your barrel, which I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. I know with tree stands you can get attachments and stuff, but then you got more metal clanking around,
More
things to
stuff to
deal
bring
with,
in the
and
woods.
Yeah. No thanks.
And my saddle is metal-less, so there is no metal.
Eric's got a new business idea coming out. It's a head net, but instead of it being camo, it looks like a ninja head net. It's called Saddle Ninja. It's going to be pretty epic.
There's gonna be a company
check the
emerging tomorrow.
patents on that
Trademarks
one.
locked
Saddle
in.
Ninja.
Jesus, there's a tree ninja over there. We do have a caller. Look at that. Someone actually called in. Let's see if it works. I hope it works. What do we got here? Looks like we got Calder. So, hey, Calder, you're live on the show. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you okay. You got me?
Well, let's see. Austin, can you hear our caller?
I got it.
Oh, so this is how I have to do it.
It
Okay.
works.
I figured out what I need to do.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's do a cheers.
Yeah,
Get your
hey,
glasses
you
up.
did it.
This is
You
like
did it.
weeks of problems fixed. What do you got, buddy?
You're like a ninja.
Hey, guys.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, I just thought I'd call in here, get a couple of questions out to Austin here while you got him on the line. And I know you guys kind of know where I'm at and stuff. I'll just give a quick debrief to Austin. So I live in New York. I'm just in between Lake Ontario and the Adirondack Mountains. So I do quite a bit of public land hunting. And so what I've been trying, and I also am a new hunter. I don't have tons of experience. And so I'm trying to get out into the big woods and, get focused in and get going in a direction that's going to lead me to success. But I am a little bit overwhelmed out here. We have hundreds of thousands of acres of public land and, there's lots of trails that run through it. There's tons of water. There's tons of thick cover. There's elevation drops and stuff from about 2,000 feet down to nothing. So I'm kind of, I feel overwhelmed and I would love just kind of like, try to trend in this direction, or go to the north facing slopes or follow the water or just look for heavy trails or, just kind of pick your brain a little bit of something that you think might help big timber success kind of.
One of the biggest things I look for when I'm hunting not only my current properties, but new properties as well, is I try to find some kind of limited resource. Is a limiting resource cover? Is it food or is it water? And usually if I can find one of those, it'll kind of set me in the right track of where most of the deer activity will be. You'll find some kind of congregated activity. So kind of to give you an idea, an example this year in Kansas, obviously with the drought, water was a huge limiting resource. And without the deer actually leaving their heavy cover, there was pretty limited water. So where I ended up focusing my efforts is there is a natural spring there. And, it didn't produce a lot of water, but it produced enough. So that for me was that limited resource where there's a lot of oaks, a lot of cedars, a lot of ridges, just like you're hunting in the big woods, where they can move kind of wherever they want. But they kind of focused and centralized their movement around this spring. And so that'd be something kind of give you an idea, maybe to see if there's some kind of mast tree that's not as, common out there.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds awesome. That's find the limited resource. That's awesome. And then I have one other question. Just would be like, your basic terrain stuff. Like I said, it's kind of hilly and mountainous out here. Lots of ups and downs, battles. Ridges, ravines, knobs. It seems like overwhelming amount of landscape for the deer to possibly use. But I know they like to travel as easy as they can sometimes. Supposedly, I don't know. But as far as terrain goes, what do you feel like I should scope out?
Find the terrain that's not being hunted. So the deer want to use the easiest route of travel, just like us humans do. And but a lot of times, if they're getting pressure, they're going to shift their movement just slightly, because they still are, their number one goal is to survive. So I love keying in on saddles in hilly country, and converging points. That one's a lot. I really like that one. If I can get into a bottom where I have, say, 3 different points converging in on the bottom, a lot of times I find either scrapes in the bottom or I find scrapes up on top. But they're really close to that converging pattern because you've got 3 different ridges kind of converging in on one. So when I think about diving into kind of a big woods, kind of a really ridgy property, kind of like you're hunting, I try to play the odds and see if I can pull from as many different features as possible. You know what I mean? So, that's where the saddles and the points are fantastic. And then converging points are huge. So those are kind of where I'll start. And then I'll go from there and just kind of see what the deer are doing from there.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm continuing to try to build up my knowledge base, and eventually someday I'll have this a little bit figured out here in these Adirondack mountains. But for right now, that's awesome, and I'll continue to listen offline. And have a good rest of your night. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Calder. Appreciate it, man. Thanks
you
for helping us test our stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
That's interesting. The way you just, Austin, distilled that down to like limited resources as just a single way to think about something. That's like a superpower. Distilling thoughts of something that's highly complex and vast is really tricky.
And it all makes sense too, because like right now in the whitetail woods,
yep,
there is limited resources.
You're right.
So you find the limited resource, whether it's a cornfield that didn't get picked, or maybe they didn't chisel plow it under, or whatever that might be, or the fact that maybe this one part of the swamp has springs in it that never close up. Deer got a drink, they'll be near water, thermal cover, whatever that might be. It's always a good thing, and it's harder early in the season for a limited resource to find,
because they're so abundant. Because that's an opposite challenge.
Yeah. Resources are everywhere, but now is the time to take advantage of the limited resource and hunt it.
Yeah, you can almost just spend your time scouting for, rather than the deer, for the limited resources, and then know
the sign will be there or it won't.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. Good points. Sounds like the one fun thing you got from us is maybe building a gallery of terms, to the new hunter.
Well, what he just did there is showed you how to find deer, limited resource, and he showed you how to find the mature buck that's going to be living near the limited resource by saying find where hunters aren't. Because if you can find where both of those two things exist, that's where mature deer are going to be.
Which is easier said than done. That is the game, or the challenge, or what do I call it? That's the rub, of the situation, especially on public land. That is one of the bigger challenges of public land. Greg, you experienced that this season, where I don't think there's a spot you could find where there was another hunter sign.
No, it was difficult, and I shift gears. It's not that I didn't want to hunt that public land, but the reality of it is everybody was hunting that public land Could I have pushed on and found another piece? Maybe. Would it still have held the same kind of bucks that I was getting on cameras out there? And I'm not saying you should rely on your camera solely, but no, there was a lot of pressure between other deer hunters, tearing that place a new one, and small game hunters, duck hunters, pheasant hunters. Everybody uses it because it's public, and those are the best opportunities for upland bird hunters and duck hunters to have any success. They're not going to get on, somebody's
private
land with a 20-acre pond and go out and blast mallards and wood ducks. They have to go out in the marshes along where the deer are and hopefully make hay.
But to that end, this is all valid. And considering other types of hunters is part of the process for sure, which I think we had a hard lesson on 2 seasons ago. That was interesting. But just there's not a lot of places where you're going to get where there aren't hunters these days because the barrier of entry has been lowered because of what we talked about in the beginning of the show. YouTube and Instagram and all of these on podcasts and online resources and social media have lowered the barrier of entry, which I think is overall a good thing, but then it presents other challenges.
Right.
Like getting away from other hunters is hard. But there's, like you said, as a bow hunter, Austin, 20 yards is enough to make a big difference. I can't tell how many deer have stuck between Greg and I or my buddy Mike and I, when we go gun hunting. It doesn't take much for a deer to sneak through a couple of hunters. So you got to just really pay close attention to that sign as best you can, which is, again, also easier said than done. Because sometimes you don't know what you're looking at, if it's any good or not. I've seen sign, I'm like, this is it. And then no, I was off the mark. It's hard to figure out.
Yeah.
That's the fun of it.
And I'm just going to build on that. We talk about it can be kind of overwhelming looking at these properties and the big vasts of land. And, a lot of times because of hunting pressure on a 7,000 acre property, I may only have a handful of locations that I actually want to focus on. And those locations are even going to be walked over at some point. I have to assume that those locations are going to be walked over and pushed. I just have to figure out if we get a little creative, get there before, hunt it before everybody else does, be the first. Maybe it will shift. They're going to find places where they can survive. There's a reason they're there. It's because they has everything that they're looking for. But what's really hard is it's hard to find public land that is regularly holding deer for the entire season, because bedding areas get pushed. You got not only deer drives, but you have everybody doing their in-season scouting. Like you said, the information is out there. There's a lot of people doing this. And, mobile hunting is huge now. So the access isn't where it sets us apart anymore. So you have to now get more creative because the deer are getting creative, and just kind of listen to what they're telling you and do your best with the property you got. And I'll properties and my Missouri gave me this year, I have my number one property got messed up because a power company came through and cut a right of way through the middle of the property. So right smack dab through the main travel routes, it pushed all the deer over onto private. So you just have to keep moving and keep working and inventory of properties together to kind of give myself something to hunt.
You have to.
Yeah, Derek, how many pieces of public are you in a season?
How many pieces am I hunting or scouting?
Scouting.
Many.
20?
20 plus.
More. No,
but I agree with everything Austin is saying. And the way I get creative with my setups now, because you're right, it's not access. You used to be able to outwalk people or cross something. Everybody's doing that. And we were joking that I get in these ugly trees. I get in the ugly trees because other people don't hunt there because they don't want to. You have to get in a tree that's so messed up.
Even the tree that you put me in on that property.
Oh, that's an easy one.
But it wasn't, I could see people overlooking that because it was surrounded by all that buckthorn.
That's how that's how my ticket to escape is. I'm a small guy, so I can hide easier in a small tree, right? Like it's easier for me, but like that's why I wear snow camo up in these little trees because I'm skyline constantly because that's where I think I have a chance to kill these deer.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So there's, tell us, we'll kind of bring the plane in for landing. If you got any other final thoughts, well, actually, one of them, what I'd like to hear is your okayest moment, because it sounds like you dunked a canoe or something like that. And, I'd like to hear the story firsthand. I'll put you on the big screen. I'll blow you up, and you can tell your story.
Yeah. So last spring, we're getting to be about a year. I was doing some scouting up in and pulling cameras up in Iowa from my canoe hunt. Yeah, I shot the real nice 8-point up there in 21, and I was doing some postseason scouting up there, and the river was higher than normal. And typically during that hunt, I was going back and forth from camp that I canoed to. I did a canoe camp. I canoed in, and then I canoed further downstream to hunt, and then would canoe back upstream and do kind of a paddle and wade situation to get back upstream. So this particular time, I couldn't actually paddle upstream because the water was real high. I couldn't make it around this bend, so I had to get out and portage my way past this bend. And while I was doing that, I was kind of working my way up a little bit of a hill to get up to this crop field. And I was walking in my waders, and y'all know that those waders. So I had this bunch of grass just kind of. Oh yeah, there's no whole lot of flexibility with them. I had a bunch of grass kind of tangle up around my feet and take me with it. And of course, the weight of the canoe just took me on over. And the best part is I had my GoPro running on the front of that canoe. And I just kind of stood up, rolled the canoe off of me, and I just kind of looked around. I was like, man, anybody see that?
Yeah, the GoPro did.
Yeah, the GoPro did. So I was like, well, all right. Well, that was interesting. On my way.
That's funny. Derek and I had a good time with a canoe, your canoe, or the first hunt of the season, dragging it through like those trees and that grass to finally get to the water. It was fine. It worked out okay.
Oh, I kind of saw what you guys did with that.
Smart stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had my paddle broke with my canoe at some point in time in the season. I was paddling back in the pitch black dark, and all of a sudden, snap! I'm like, oh my god! I was almost up a creek without a paddle. I know. I was like, what am I going to do?
Oh man!
Just keep swimming.
Yeah.
If it ain't hard, we'll find a way to make it hard.
Exactly. Right. Let's just keep making it okay. I tell you. No, thanks for hanging out with us. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play some outro music here. I haven't done that before. Is it this one that I want?
Okay.
Damn it, wrong button. What's the other one?
Press that one. Let's see. Magic.
There we go.
There you go.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning into the show. We're glad to have you listening. For all that, we'll take all the pity 5-star reviews you can give us, the $2 reviews. And why don't you tell folks real quick where they can find you, how they get in touch with you, and all that jazz before we kick up the tunes here.
Absolutely. So you can find me Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and YouTube at Tactical Approach Outdoors. And my website is tacticalapproachoutdoors.com. And that's where you're going to find, my Deer Hunter Academy, which we were talking about earlier. And also my other consulting and mentoring services on there. And you can see some more information about me and get to know me a little bit more and what I'm all about. So, and over on YouTube, it's all self-filmed, public land. It's a whole lot of fun.
Cool, man. Awesome. Cool. Go check them out, guys. Thanks for joining in. Hang on the line with us for a minute. We'll debrief. I'm going to crank these tunes and let it roll out for a sec here, guys. So until next week.
See ya.
I'm the only one with the drink left. Drake's out of drop.
Water.
All right. Have a good week, everybody. See ya.